So this classroom is obviously quite unique, that is under the tree.
Yeah, under the tree.
I found out of this charity because my sister was working at Age International in London, and she said, you know, you play your rugby and stuff. There's actually a charity that works in Africa with rugby. And I was just like, get out. I was just like, no way. To be disabled, to have special needs anywhere in the world is an incredible challenge. But when you come to somewhere like Malawi, which has huge issues obviously with poverty and social care, it takes it to a whole nother level. And it's one of the most humbling things, and it puts so much in perspective.
Malawi is one of the poorest countries in Africa. And at the demonstration school, we witnessed how volunteer coaches Hal and Becca work with children with disabilities, ranging from autism to cerebral palsy.
This is the first time in the program that we've had a training week that's incorporated a special needs class. It's one of the most humbling experiences. We had no idea what to expect, and then two of the guardians had their children on their back, just tied to their back like fully, you know, nearly fully grown young children.
Sometimes the mums would obviously get tired from carrying their children around, and, you know, fair enough. I had to take over sometimes, and it was just such good fun because some of these children really can't say a word. I'll just hold them up like this against me, and then you can just see their smile. Like, they'll be quite silent when I'm just holding them standing there. But then I run, and then it's these like noises of just pure joy. They're grinning, and it's fantastic.
There's no real physical education for those with special needs, so for us to be here, giving them those kind of provisions, for some of them maybe for the first time, when you actually put it in perspective, it's one of the most amazing things you could ever do. It's not going to earn you a huge check at the end of the day, but there's very few things I'd rather be doing right now. It's unbelievable.
What sound does a lion make? What do they sound like?
Yeah. Come on, little man. Yeah. Come on.
Lions, goats. Go! Ah, gotcha.
In Lilongwe, where we stayed at a place called Mabuya Camp. Essentially, it's a backpackers. The food is really good. They have a really nice restaurant here. They've got a beautiful big swimming pool. The camp has got a great atmosphere. You know, it's perfect for chilling out when you want to chill out. The staff are really friendly, really nice. They'll do what they can to accommodate you. It's got that real nice sort of rustic African feel to it.
So in terms of our setup out here, we have a charity minibus for our teams, travelling through all these different countries, week to week, month to month.
Sometimes the journey can get the better of people, and they get a little bit sleepy. As you can see, Finn is now catching flies.
We have a project manager, so for example, Sophia.
I've always wanted to do something as a volunteer, and I thought this was the best option for me. So that was the reason I decided to stay here for 5 months, and this year is 7 months and a half.
I started off as a volunteer, project managed last year, and now I came on board full time. My role is the planning and delivery of all our projects. It's making sure that what we put together has the greatest impact on the communities. In each location we go, we can actually have a proper legacy.
Since our project started in 2012, our volunteers can come for as long as they want to be part of this programme throughout the 9 countries that we work in Africa. We have a role for media producer where we want to get as much content to demonstrate the impact that we're having.
I am doing a lot of video content and lots of photography of the Pride's everyday life. Well, they're very interested in the camera, so every time I take my camera out, you can see what's happening.
Richard Bennett has a unique perspective on teaching conditions in Africa, having taught in the UK for many years before founding the charity.
This classroom would be for young learners. I remember teachers complaining if there were 30 or 35 kids in a class, and that was difficult to teach. You could expect to see upwards of 100 children in a space like this. Education is a real privilege out here. Young children really know the value of education.
Richard grew up in South Africa before he tragically lost his father, which led to the family moving to England.
We were victims of crime as a young family in South Africa. We were a family that was working hard, successful, very much part of the wider community and the future of the new South Africa. So to leave it at that time was incredibly distressing for me and also for our family. It almost feels like on a personal level there's some unfinished business. Running the charity at times is incredibly difficult, but I draw on that inspiration of the times we had in South Africa as a family. Having that chance to come back here gives me a great sense of fulfillment for sure.
Rugby coaching volunteers from around the world start out in Kenya, taking rugby to remote areas across the continent before travelling down to South Africa. The 7-month trip incorporates 9 different countries. So all the volunteer coaches come from different backgrounds. We've got one guy, Warren, who's from New Zealand, and he's a development officer for the New Zealand Rugby Union, so his qualifications are right up there with the best.
Yeah, I come across this Pride back in 2011 actually, it was the first year it started. I was playing and coaching in Bury St Edmunds in England. Just come across one of the websites that I was looking at and I thought there'd be an awesome opportunity. I love travel, always wanted to do Africa, so I thought why not be able to put into what I do in my job, where I'm fortunate to have a paid role doing, to be able to come across here with probably kids that don't get these same opportunities and put probably my skill set to everybody out here. Not only learn rugby but learn the key values that we carry with rugby, and hopefully that can help them in everyday life.
On the flip side of that, we've got someone like Olivia who's had rugby in her life due to her brother and her father, and that's just been a part of her life, but she hasn't necessarily got any coaching experience or indeed playing experience. But a lot of this is about teaching life skills and guidance towards the kids.
And where do we touch with our hands? Okay? And we touch.
I don't have a rugby background. It's just all my friends played rugby, so we'd always watch it at school. I've learned a lot, even how to referee, as well as so many drills. I know how to adapt a drill now. I know that if this drill isn't working, I can quickly change it. I've learned so much in the ways of just making rugby work. I feel like I could go back to England now and coach rugby to children.
2, 3, rugby! Well done!
Being out here, it's opened up a whole different door, which I didn't even think was there, of options of what I can do. It's been what I needed to do for me, and so it's helped me a lot.
Getting around rural Longwe is fairly challenging on the bumpy dirt roads. So when it comes to working with John C's school, the volunteers need to take bike taxis.
Morning. Paddy, did you have anybody say comments to you yesterday? Yeah, when you see other people on the bikes, the women are sat sideways, so I wasn't sure if I sat on the bike wrong.
At John C, we were introduced to the headmaster, who explained to us that due to a lack of space, one of the classes actually takes place under a tree.
Welcome. Good morning.
Morning.
1,000 seems an awful lot of children for like a country school. Do children have to come from very far away?
Yes, they do come very far. This is the map of the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is village. It means that the other arenas are coming from this village. So from here to the school is very far.
How far?
7 or 5 kilometers.
Oh wow.
Okay, yeah. And they walk?
They do walk.
Yeah.
But the main challenge at this school is that we don't have enough classrooms, especially rain season.
Yeah.
Those that are using under trees, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to show us the...
Let's start with this class.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this classroom is obviously quite unique. That is under the tree.
Yeah, under the tree. This is the class 4, and this is the class.
And so in the...
You can look at
they're cold, yeah?
It's very cold.
So they want to be in the sun. They need to be in the sun.
Yeah.
Was this where they are the whole day?
It's a permanent class for them.
Permanent classroom?
Yeah, it's a permanent class for them.
Okay.
Extra classrooms. That's what we want.
Because in this school there's 1,000 children?
Yes.
1,000?
Yeah, 1,000 children. They feel cold, they feel not happy with the outside class, which is not good.
And what do the parents of the children think about them being under this tree?
They are not happy. They are not happy. They are not happy. And they do come and mod bricks from their villages. with an aim of having a classroom block.
Do you get any assistance from the government?
No, not really. Not really. Because government has got more schools. Yeah.
So sickness is really a problem here?
Yeah.
A big problem?
As you can know,
because they're in the wind?
Coughing.
Sure. So how many months would they miss with the rainy season?
It's 4 months.
So for 4 months they don't come to school?
It's 4 months.
Wow.
But for 4 months, it's a problem. So together with this group, we have molded the bricks behind the classroom. And what we are looking now is the assistance to have a classroom so that we can accommodate these learners. The chiefs and the school community can't manage to buy iron sheets. Iron sheets in Malawi are very expensive. Bags of cement, very expensive, that we can't manage to buy. That's a challenge. I don't know what I can do.
Back there at John C. School, that was pretty rough. That classroom outside underneath the tree, you know, that leads to a lot of sickness for a lot of kids. 4 months of the year they're actually just off school because they can't be there. So they've got the bricks, they've got the people who can put things together, but they don't have stuff for the roof of the building, they don't have the iron sheets that they needed. I asked him off camera, does he ever get any other people out here other than Bhubesi Pride who come out just once or twice a year? And he said no. He said that the only people he can actually rely on are this group of people who come out to teach them rugby and have a bit of fun with the kids. So even though they've got other problems, they do still appreciate, they do still enjoy the fact that the kids can get a smile on their face and learn something new. And clearly they're very fascinated by people from a different part of the world, you know, the Western world. It's quite sad to hear that they do not get any other assistance. Whereas I would have thought, perhaps naively, that they would have got more people coming from around the world to help out. But I guess this is just one of many stories in Malawi. I mean, it's boiling hot weather, we've been struggling. These kids are there, blankets over them because they're sitting in the breeze. And that's in the good season. I suppose we'll go away and we'll think about stuff like that a little bit more, and you know, who knows, maybe we can help out even. The group heads to Lake Malawi sort of halfway through their 2 weeks, through their coaching weeks, and we joined them there just a day after we got here. It took us about 4 hours to get there, but there were some really nice things to see along the way. We saw a guy riding along on a bicycle with goats on the back of his bicycle, which was pretty funny to see.
It's good. Amazing. So neatly packed.
Just loads of baobab trees everywhere. So that was really kind of cool to see. And then there's also just kids all the way along the road. So the 4-hour journey, it was filled with lots of interesting things along the way. The view as we came out of the car and we walked through down towards the beach, the view really is breathtaking. There's a beautiful deck there and the water's crystal clear.
We've been coming here for a few years now. It just gives the guys a chance to see a different side of Malawi.
It's a great chance for the team to bond in a social setting. We're obviously met with this amazing view and an opportunity to go and do some water sports and just have some proper downtime as a team.
Lots of sort of enjoyable activities out here. Do a bit of snorkeling or just generally out in the water, swimming around, kayaks, canoes, tons of stuff to do here.
You sometimes get a chance to take in the culture, listening to some local music.
It's a good chance to sort of get that interaction, and you can see passion for music in a community that's quite cut off from the rest of the world.
These youngsters are brought up on very little, yet they're able to fashion instruments out of all sorts of materials. I find it amazing.
One of the nicest things to see there was the freedom of the kids. We actually stopped past a football field. There's a local team playing. They were all kitted out in Chelsea shirts. While we were watching the game, there was this little kid. He looked so content and decided to start walking with us when he saw cameras. Found out his name was George. He didn't speak much English. George is our new friend.
Bye.
Hey, oh, you want to wear the glasses? Hey, looking cool, man. Yeah. It was just a perfect example to us of a typical Malawian kid who doesn't have a fortunate background. He has a tough life, but he's just got that beautiful big smile and is always intrigued by foreigners and just wants to be friendly and have fun and smile and explore a little bit. Hey, hello George.
Hey.
So a few days back we headed to a place called Lezulu Market, not far from us here at Camp Mabuya.
How many kgs?
We don't want a lot, just a little bit. We just want to try. Maybe three pieces.
Bags.
3 pieces, just a small amount. Not a fan of sweet potato. Yeah, looks awesome. Yeah, do you have 1,000 change for me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, he's gone. Right, we've got some sweet potatoes. What is it?
Sweet potato.
Oh, this is sweet potato. Can I try it? For someone who doesn't like sweet potato, it's pretty good. Should we buy a live chicken? That's a duck. That's not even a chicken, that's a duck. Do you want me to just walk around carrying a chicken? I've never done this before. I don't know what we're going to do with this. Hello, Bwanji. Hello. We went past a barber shop and we met this really great young barber. He was extremely polite and friendly, and he actually finished a haircut when we were there and then pulled the guy back and made him sit down, and he faked shaving his beard just for us to get a good shot of it. It looks good. Oh, you do shave also, yeah? Shaving, Okay, we continued on. We got to this place which was essentially a wooden man-made bridge across this flowing water that kind of separates the market from the other end of town. You had to pay 50 kwacha to get across. It's nothing, it's probably like 1p or 1 cent. You can understand why they have to cross the water, because the water is disgusting. The scent was actually pretty horrific. These guys are washing the shoes down below, working hard. I assume they're washing them and then selling them. So this is part of the business. One of the biggest eye-openers is when we were at one of the coaching days and there was this girl named Regina, and she lived nearby. Clearly she comes from a very poor background, but she had the ambition of being a lawyer, which was fantastic to hear, and apparently she was one of the top in the class. We got to be introduced to her parents. We were invited in, which was great, and we sat down and we spoke to them a little bit. The hard life that they have really showed on their faces. They told us a little bit more about their life and about how they live in this absolutely tiny home, and it was pretty upsetting to see.
Yeah, the life in the village, typical village like this, is so tough. You can see the house here, the roofing, it's not so good. When rains come, it can leak. And it's very hard for us to get sustainable things, like maybe getting food, getting clothes. So it's really tough staying in the village.
The living room was actually probably the most spacious part about it, but we then asked them where the bedrooms were, and they lifted up the sheet and they showed us, and the main bedroom had a mosquito net and it had a lot of their possessions around the edge of the room, but it was absolutely tiny and it was very, very dark. And we did notice that the main bedroom was the only bedroom with mosquito nets. And so I don't know what the plan is for the kids. I think what we were told is that most people just try to prevent things. If they get, if they get bitten and if they get sick with malaria, they'll go to the hospital and get some treatment. But a lot of people can't even afford to get to the hospital and get that treatment. So malaria is one of the biggest killers in this country. The saddest part for me was Regina's room. She walked in there and we couldn't see very well, but we were saying, like, where's the room? They say, no, this is the bedroom. And in the front of the bedroom was quite a big pot. I think it had maize or flour in it. I couldn't see properly, it was so dark. So they said to us that was half storeroom and half Regina's room. Her bed was a mat on the floor, a straw mat. That was her bed. I can't imagine going to bed there every night. Then just off there was the boys' room, so they had 2 teenage sons. And I actually couldn't get my shoulders through the door because it was so narrow. So I don't know what's going to happen when those boys get a bit bigger. They were pretty big as it was. These 2 guys had to sleep right next to each other on straw mats, also sleep in pitch black all the time. And obviously the smoke from the fire would go through the room. It was a very sad thing to see. As with all things in this beautiful country, there's extreme contrast. One of the things that kind of struck me was as we left this very unfortunate situation, we looked outside and staring back at us with all the neighbors and the family, and they just had this glint in their eye, and there's massive smiles, and suddenly we're back in a place where, from our point of view anyway, it kind of felt like a happy place again. I don't know if these people hide the emotions or the stress pretty well, but generally they seem like a happy bunch. They had a beautiful 6-month-old daughter, and once we showed a little bit of attention to the mother with the daughter, the mother actually opened up a little bit and she started to smile a bit more, and it was something that will stick with us for a long time though. And who knows, maybe one day we'll return and we'll get to see some progress with that particular family. The father was optimistic, but I think with respect and realistically, I don't think that their life is going to change anytime soon. Regina obviously has high hopes, and if she does stick with school, she may do well and she may end up becoming a lawyer, like she said, and perhaps she'll move to another country. Who knows what can happen? But at some point we would hope that that particular family their circumstances will improve. As in other parts of Africa, malaria is a silent killer. Malaria is responsible for approximately 6.2 million reported cases annually. Isaac, one of the local Bhubesi Pride coaches, actually contracted malaria while we were there.
This week Tuesday I was sick, and the next day I was there at the beach. As of now I'm feeling good and okay. What me do to prevent from malaria is that I used to sleep on mosquito nets and cutting some grasses around my home. Yeah, that's it. It can't conquer my future because, of course, I was sick, but I was deserved to stay on ground. That's why I was deserved to be here.
At the moment, Richard has taken on another huge challenge as the charity has bought a 7-acre piece of land and aims to build a community centre right in the heart of rural Lilongwe, complete with rugby field, netball courts, teaching facilities and a clubhouse.
I'm now here in Lilongwe to try and get our build project for our rugby club community centre up and running in Mzumanzi. Being based at Mabuya camp means that each day I can head out to the rural community, I can liaise with the contractors we'll be working with, but I know that it is going to be a challenge. We cut into the farmland again, and you might have noticed already, but Lilongwe is in that direction. Just imagine if we can turn this into an actual club facility that enables access for all these kids in this area, the coaches. There's so much enthusiasm and interest from the teaching community as well, and from the local coaches. If we can get them coaching, reffing, but even playing and having some really competitive games of rugby here, it'd be absolutely amazing. This will be the charity's biggest legacy project.
Every volunteer comes out here for different reasons. Some are for gap years, others are to take a break from the everyday grind. But for Olivia from Leeds, the sudden loss of a brother led to her taking a bold move and quitting everything before heading to Africa for 7 months.
When I'm out here and I want to just actually think about it, I'd rather just go off by myself. But there are a lot of people out here that have gone through similar things. So it's been nice to just have a bit of a dark, humoured conversation with them about death. But I know everyone's there for me. There's sometimes I'm just thinking, he'd love it here, So yeah, I think he'd be proud of me as well. One second. Yeah, I think he'd be really proud of me for being out here. He has just kind of opened up so many people's eyes to you need to make decisions. You need to go out there and live life to the fullest kind of thing.
The whole 2 weeks that we've been here in Malawi, it's been leading up to a tournament day. There are hundreds of kids, lots of dignitaries, there are sponsors and supporters of the charity coming out. The volunteer coaches coach the buddy coaches and they coach the kids, teaching them about rugby, teaching them about values, respect, integrity, all of the key things that rugby stands for.
Communication has been pretty good. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the adults probably grew up when there was a fair amount of British influence here in Malawi. I suppose with the kids it's a bit harder really. The biggest problems we had were actually in Mozambique, because obviously that was Portuguese territory, so they'd speak their local village language and then Portuguese, and often they wouldn't have very good English, whereas here they speak their local language and English. So yeah, the communication hasn't been too bad around here.
Okay, George, stop the game, we'll do the subs. Would you like to referee a game? And I'll be on there with you, so I can help you. So any decisions that maybe you don't get or maybe anything like that, I can just help you out a little bit. Okay, does that sound good? Yes. So,
obviously we've got our Pride values. Discipline is one of them. And yesterday at the tournament, there was a player who was touched and had to go back 5 meters. And I heard the kid next to me go back 5 meters and put his arms out and shout discipline. So he sort of remembered that from the week and is using it at tournament day, which is great.
At the beginning of the tournament day, we got there and we were still kind of sussing out what's going on because it was our first time there. There were a bunch of kids under the trees. They were singing songs and clapping their hands, etc. And I don't know why, but it was just beautiful to see because, yeah, I guess it was just that they were enclosed that, yeah, these kids, they don't have anything. Yeah, it was just lovely to see. They were just so happy. I don't want to be too dramatic. Like these kids, I'm sure their lives are better than they might appear to us, but they really have very little. There was this one boy, he was wearing a certain shirt, which I couldn't even tell you what football jersey it was right off the top of my head, but I would recognize it. And every time we went back to that school, in Mzansi, he was in the same shirt. When they're children, that's the easiest part, because that's all they know. When they get older, when they become teenagers and adults, that's when it becomes really difficult for them. Right now is a great time. So when we saw these kids singing and clapping and dancing, it was just beautiful to watch. And yeah, it was a moment that'll stick with me.
To meet so many incredible children, to work with them, and to show them a sport that they might not have ever seen before, and to see them enjoy it so much. It really is one of the most special things you can do as someone involved in rugby. So last but in no way least, can we please have a demonstration school?
Hal and Becca did a fantastic job. I think we were all a little bit taken aback at the reactions of these kids and just how much fun they're really having. At the end of the tournament day, everyone gathered around and these dancers from the local villages came out, and these guys were, I don't know if it was the goal to look scary or not, but they were pretty scary. And the whole sort of premise is that they would come out, perform, and then people give them money. You know, one guy got a 2,000 kwacha note, which is not a lot of money, and he took the money, and that made his day. He ran off and we didn't see him dance again. He was just like, he just grabbed it, victorious, ran down to the village, and we didn't see him again. But visually it was quite incredible to see. Obviously the dancing was pretty good too, but these costumes were something else. Yeah, it's very hard to describe, but it was pretty cool to see. And what was also cool to see was the musicians were a whole bunch of old ladies, and they were dancing, doing their little thing. The guys were hitting the drums, and it was a lot of fun. And then after that, there was a DJ there, and he put on some awesome sort of African music. And we then basically had, danced with the kids. And I don't think I've ever seen so many good dancers in one place. And some of these kids must have been 4 years old. These guys, they just go for it. They feel the music. And they look like they're happiest when they're either singing or dancing. So that's the end of the day. It's been nuts. It's been a brilliant tournament day. It's actually been quite emotional because these kids are absolutely beautiful. We've just been dancing with them. It's crazy to think we've been exposed to the lifestyle that they live. And yet we've seen them, some of the happiest kids I've ever seen in my life, and definitely some of the best dancers. The volunteers have just left after some brilliant work today. It's going to be tough for us to leave this place.
One of our biggest challenges as a charity is to raise awareness. We sometimes feel that whether it's through World Rugby or some of the larger rugby unions around the world, it would be fantastic to develop relationships with them, either to connect to their coaches, development officers, to get great people out here to be part of what we're doing and further the work that the charity is doing in Africa, or maybe to look at certain projects that they might want to get behind. So for anyone that's watching this and wants to get involved in what we're doing, we're very open to conversations and looking at new projects that we can do together.
Having now seen what the volunteers go through firsthand, I would 100% recommend this to anyone who loves rugby and wants to get involved with the charity. Well, the truth is, there's one or two out here, they're not rugby people, one hasn't even played rugby. If you have any slight interest in doing something like this, I would definitely not hesitate. If you do hear about what Bhubesi Pride are doing, keep track of their progress, maybe take your time, find the right moment in your life, and definitely apply to get out here, because there's so many different positive aspects to what they're doing out here. I would say it's extremely rewarding. You'll get to see a lot of different African countries, get to meet a lot of cool people. I would definitely recommend it.
done already, and what we are waiting for is to have the builders start molding bricks after the installation of the pump here.
Oh,